make of this report?
Well, I think it's a very important report at the right time. I mean, I think we all agree, after the Oxfam scandal, the Hollywood scandal, with all the issues that have been happening in Rotherham and in Newcastle and so on, that child sexual abuse is a very important issue. But the other thing about this report is that it highlighted that sexual abuse isn't just confined to children, it's also confined to adults. So the main issue here, the main risk factor here is about vulnerability, and that's a really important issue to raise. I think what's problematic, and this has been problematic since the whole child sexual exploitation narrative began, or if you like, the whole focus on grooming began, is that it's been focusing on one particular group of perpetrators and one particular ethnic group. And the only issue I have with that is that it means we don't talk about protecting the victims, we don't talk about identifying the victims, which means that entire areas get missed. And a classic example of that, if you like, is we know that from County Lines research that there is vulnerability out there with adults, there is vulnerability out there with children, that there are criminals who are taking children out of cities across county lines and sexually exploiting them and exploiting them in other ways. We know that happens. So I think what's really important is that we start connecting the dots. We start focusing on the victims. We do need to look at perpetrators. They are abhorrent. The crimes they commit are abhorrent, and we need to deal with those harshly. But if we focus on if we focus on perpetrators the whole time and their ethnicity and their cultural background, which, by the way, is not relevant in terms of sexual crimes. We know that sexual crimes happen across all groups, across all areas. But what's important is we start focusing on the victims.
OK, you say the ethnicity of the perpetrators is not relevant, but the review does say, and I'm just going to quote, the abusers were mainly, quote, not white, but came from a diverse range of backgrounds, including Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian, Iranian, Iraqi, Kurdish, Turkish, Albanian and Eastern European. So what do you make of that?
Well, I'm a researcher. There's two things here. First of all, I'm a researcher. So the main question I would ask is which areas are you looking at? We know there are some areas in this country that have high multi-ethnic groups. The second question I would ask is, what sectors are you looking at? Now, if you look at nighttime economies and you're looking at areas with high proportions of ethnic minority groups, you are going to find perpetrators that are from ethnic minority backgrounds. And the only issue with that is if you don't look elsewhere, if you don't look across the country, if you don't look across the sectors, if you don't look at the vulnerability of victims in terms of where are they coming from? Are they coming from pupil referral units? Are they coming from children in care? Are they coming from normal homes? Are there issues there around vulnerability? If we don't look at that as well, we ignore the victims. And that's the main point. So some of it is about where are you looking? Where are you looking? And is that why you're only finding certain kinds of perpetrators from certain backgrounds? That's one point. But the other issue is if you just focus on the perpetrators and their ethnicity and ask questions, are you then ignoring the victims? Are you then ignoring the important questions, which is about safeguarding the victims? We don't talk about that. That's a really awful thing about grooming. The whole grooming narrative is focusing so much on the perpetrators that we're not asking important questions about vulnerability. And the one important message I felt that came out of the operation, that came out of this operation and came out of David Spice's report is around vulnerability and that it's not confined to particular groups. And I think we should think the same about perpetrators as well.
OK, Dr Zubaida Haque from the Runnymede Trust, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.